Okay, so Loft, to do another project very fast. Loft is, again, a surface creation tool that makes surface out of perpendicular curve cuts of that surface. So the first thing we need to know is how do we create those cuts? So you could do curves. Example, I'm going to copy this pressing Alt, or I can also say move, and then vertical, that's the shortcut V, and then go upwards. So that would be copy, vertical, and you can get as many as one vertically, no? So those are perpendicular. So this plane is perpendicular, is parallel to this one, but it will be perpendicular to the surface flow, no? You can obviously do polylines as well, just to give some ideas here. And then I'm going to press Alt, Alt, Alt. And those are all vertical, but I can go, if I Control Tab and go to the front view, I can also do the same with a curve that is vertically positioned. No? This one, I can just copy it, pressing Alt, or you can say copy from here, there. Now, if I do a loft of any of these options, loft, there's going to be like pretty much like an extrusion, so that's not going to help us much. We can do an extrusion for that, and that's it. Those are the sub options. So I'm just going to say no. What I'm going to do is just select some of them and scale them, so we have some variation and some interest in the loft. No, you can select control points and shift those. And I think we did it last class, so it's not a big secret. One thing we did, but maybe it was too fast, is how do we create the Loft command? You select the curves one by one, carefully, and you have to select them on the same area. Then when you press enter, you need to take a look at what's going on with this before you say enter for the second time. This point in each of the curves should be approximately in the same area. So they're on the bottom left. That's good. And they should be oriented. This arrow should be in the same direction. If it's not, you just click on top of the old arrow and it will swap its position to the other side. You can do that as many times as you want. In this case, it's correct. So I'm going to say enter. And there you go. So you have this loft. I can cap this guy because I know the top and the bottom are planar surfaces, and that would be a solid. You need solids, remember, so I'm going to do the same here, just to do different examples. These are parallel curves. I'm just going to select some of them and do something slightly different. Loft, select them one by one, carefully. And, check the points. So those are here, here. So maybe this one you want to move it up here, for example. And the arrows here are going this direction, so we want to change this arrow. So it goes in the opposite direction. And change that arrow as well. And this arrow as well. Okay, so now they're more or less in the same area and the arrows in the same direction. So if I say enter, it should work okay. There you go. I can cap this guy. And notice that I'm not working with scale. If you were careful about scale, you would probably just work a bit more diligently with the size of the curves or the polylines, etc. So you can do the same with the polyline, of course. Changing control points. And the same, I can do Loft command and select each one by one. Let's take a look at where the curves are. These are in the same corner. That's good. Arrows in the same direction. I think it should work. Let's see what happens. Now, maybe in this case, the idea of normal is not a great option. Maybe you want it, maybe not. You can do loose, but you also have the tight option. It could be, sorry, the straight sections, which will be maybe better for this option. That's up to you, to be honest. Anyways, okay. Then you can cap. And there you go. So I have several solids that I can work with. Remember that when you do a loft or anything, the curves stay there. Like exactly in the same position as the loft itself. So I'm going to just use the three of them. Why not do something interesting here? Okay, put it over here, put it down. Take this one also in, rotate it, and scale it. Go to the front view, move it over here, maybe scale it like this, a little bit smaller. And move it around, I don't know, like here. So. Okay, why not? Could be. And then I'm going to select this one, put it here, front view, top view, scale down, rotate it, and I'm going to stretch it this way. Have something here. It's slightly different. Anyway, you get the point. You find out something that you like, and you just create your own kind of a carving world. That would be the Boolean difference, and then you can enter and select those, see what happens. So you get like some curvy elements, but then inside you will be having more interesting or crazy shapes. I guess that will be the best definition. Okay, so you could also go Control Z and do a Boolean intersection. Select one, and then these guys. Which could be as well. Either option is good or bad, whatever you want it to be. You might want to spend time scaling them or adding more stuff or not, whatever you want to do. It's your project. You should enjoy that, no? That part of the project. Okay, so remember the first step would have been to save as, but now we have to decide what ingredients we want. So what elevations and so on. To start with, I'm just gonna create the make 2D with the 4 components and a nice perspective shot. I think the perspective is meant to be powerful, so I'm gonna spend a little time choosing what perspective is best. And it's not only for this project, you should be careful about all of them. What is a good shot for all of the projects, more or less, no? So I'm just gonna go and change the camera lens. I'm gonna use the Dolby as well, so if you do this, it's a bit easier to change. I'm gonna use the pan command to move down a little bit, so it's a bit more dramatic. And you can also control and right click to do a smooth zoom in. Okay, so whatever, I think it's not bad. So we need to use this for the rendering as well. So I'm gonna go to this little camera, which is also under set view, name views, and it pops up that window. And then you're gonna save, and you're gonna go to perspective good or whatever you wanna call it, so you know how to get back there, no? Okay, select, make 2D. Here are the options, perspective good. I want all of the drawings, maintain source layers, and I don't need, I mean, if you want to see it, that's fine. It will come in a different layer and will give you a line all around. It's up to you. If you were to have the section cut, it will have the clipping plane intersections as well. You'll say, okay. Okay, it might take time if it's a very complex shape, but otherwise, you know, it shouldn't be a tough one. Another thing might be troubling. If you do a complex Boolean operation, you might have more than one solid here. That's fine. You can select them all of the solids you have and then do the make 2D. Doesn't have to be only one. Anyway, notice that when you do the make 2D, it creates the drawings exactly in the 0, 0, 0. But the good thing is that they're actually yellow, which means that they are selected right after the command has been deployed. So I just need to go to Control Tab, go to the top view. I don't even need to move them or anything. I could just go without deselecting. That means clicking outside. I will do export selected Illustrator. No? And I can say Loft 1 or whatever the name is. Standards are good. And I could even delete these ones. Now I have the vector-based line, so you know I don't need them there. I can say open. There they are. Now, if I do view and I have ruler show, you can sense this is actually 10. So that's because the last file I did was 10 by 10, which is what we want. 10, 10 and a half shouldn't be bigger than that. And the reason is that the grid of our InDesign is 10 by 10, more or less, a bit bigger. So you can have an 11, a 10 and a half if you want, but that's up to you. So I can start moving these guys a bit, although I know I have to do guidelines. So I'm just gonna wait a little bit. Okay, if it's not a 10 by 10, remember you can just do a file, new, print, inches 10 by 10. You change that to inches 10 by 10. When you create the new one, you can just copy all of this tab, Control C, you go to the new one, Control V, but make sure that you have page remember layers to bring the layers that you need, which are these two. Okay, I'm not gonna care too much about this line quality and so I can do that at the end. Back to Rhino. Okay, I'm gonna bring the isometric tool. So I'm gonna go select view. Or I can actually go to properties and change that to parallel view for a second and see how that works. And I'm not sure what this one. There you go. So you will go to set view and you have to choose one of these options under isometric set view. No? Choose one that's different. So I think the perspective was from the other side. So maybe one of the, one of the north options would be better, like this one. No? Maybe not that one. Set view. What happened? There you go. It could be this one or any other one that really tells something different. Okay. Like this one. Okay, you know it's isometric, meaning it's a parallel view. This line is exactly parallel to that one, and this one to that one. Parallel lines in reality of this project, they're parallel also in the drawing. That's the whole idea. Now be careful not to do this. If you orbitate just a bit, it is not an isometric. It is parallel view, but it's not an isometric anymore. So make sure you stay there. Also remember which one it is, because you're gonna have to do that one for every single time. make 2D. I don't need any more 4 views. I just need the single view I'm working with. Control tab to go to the top view, file, export selected. Let's say something like Loft 2. Okay, delete, because I don't need it there, so it's not a mess anymore. And I can do, for now, I just open it up, Loft 2. Select it, Control C, can go here, make sure page memory is on, so you can do Control V, and that's going to be another drawing. Not sure how big, just leave it there for a second. Back to Rhino, back to perspective. We need the section cut, no? So it's the clipping plane, no? So we're going to do a clipping plane, maybe from the front view. Last class I did it from the top, so I can do clipping plane, drop by clicking 2 times a plane, go back to perspective. Notice that, let me see if it's working. So it's not cutting the form. That means that we need to say somewhere, hey, cut the form in 3D. That's under properties. You have this clipping plane option, and you have to click on whatever you are working on. So you will say perspective, good. Now it's only working on the front view, which could be good if you want that. But in our case, we want a perspective. You choose. There you go. You move it, whatever you think is best. You choose a, remember that the other models, you don't know if the sections are going to be good or not. So just choose something a bit that is adequate in the middle area. So, okay, I like it. Now I'm saying section perspective. So we're going to go back to section here, perspective. And I'm going to do a more like, I'm going to choose a 2-point perspective for whatever reason, I don't know. And I'm going to increase the camera lens and Dolby to do a more dramatic perspective, something like this. Maybe a little bit tilted. Why not? Something like that. Okay, once you decide, you have to save this view as well. So you go to the name views, or you go to set view, name views, and it pops up this one, save another one, and you call it perspective section good or something like that. So you can always go to that one. Okay, I'm going to select, to do the make 2D of a section perspective, you need to select both the clipping plane and your model. Okay, and then you do make 2D. Go to the top view, export selected without deselecting, and I'm going to call this Loft 3 because it's the same project. Okay, I'm going to delete it. Actually, I'm going to go back to Illustrator. I'm going to open that one. Select Control C, Control V. If it comes on top, just be careful. You always select something of the drawing and drag the whole thing out. And here I am with all of the drawings I want, but no clue as in which ones are bigger, smaller, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the time you spend a little bit of time deciding how do I want this to happen. It's up to you. I'm just going to do one option. I kind of like, why not, the section perspective. So I'm going to get rid of this elevation. I'm going to scale these guys always together because I know they're aligned. So it's kind of helpful to know that. And for now, I'm going to leave them here outside. I'm going to make this one the biggest little guy. Remember, you can work with things outside, so you can select them nicely afterwards. Okay, so select everything. Try to select everything very, very clearly, because if you miss, for example, something when you move it, you might not be moving something that you think you're moving. So that's a classic mistake. Anyway, I'm going to do big, maybe 1 and 2 here. I don't know, how can I do this? or maybe like this. I don't know, to be honest. Let's see, isometric, maybe down here. And then maybe, actually no, I'm gonna do this. This 3, one on top of each other, small and cute. And this one a bit bigger below. Again, when I'm scaling shift, if you do this, you're not doing a good drawing, so just be careful with that. And this is going to be a series of 3, a little bit smaller. I don't know what you think. With the little time I spend on it, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Could be better. Again, it's a bit more up to you. Now this approximate is not in line, so now I'm gonna drag with the shift button and place the guidelines. No? Guidelines are these little cyan looking lines that stand beyond, and ideally you will create a new layer and call it something like guide lines, and then you will place those guidelines always inside of that layer. So it's dragging the little square box here. Those should be probably all the way on the top. I know the hidden lines should be all the way on the bottom, so I can do that already. And now I can select each of them separately. It's great. Okay, so if you want to work on a layer, you can do it all, just clicking here once, and then I'm going to start dragging different guidelines by pressing shift, taking them out. And again, I think you should spend a bit more time than what I have done. I'm doing a top of each of the drawings and bottom. And from here, shift, you also can do the same thing. You can always select a guideline and just move it with an arrow. So if you want to move a little bit only. And another one here. It gets tricky, especially when you have the section box or, sorry, section perspective. It might be that you're missing this little corner from some of the drawings. So how do you keep that scale? You have to be careful. Maybe this line also helps you decide how big it is by creating another line. So just be careful of how big things are one to another, no? Anyway, let's go up. And maybe, well, imagine I want to select this little drawing. I'm trying to select the whole thing, but I'm selecting guidelines at the same time. So that's how layers are very helpful. You can lock the guidelines and then do something about this guy. You may want to keep it exactly aligned to the other one. But maybe here you might want to make it bigger and then bring another guideline here, no? For that corner. Okay, if I turn off the guidelines, all of them should disappear. So you know they're under control. You can lock them or turn them off to see how it looks. Okay, guidelines are taken care of. I could actually save this already. I can call it Loft Final. But if the guidelines are perfect, you can even say save as and call it something. Well, still saving, slow process. Save as, and you can give it not Loft Final, but you can call it Template Final. So you can start from the beginning here and just delete not necessarily delete. You can bring them here to the side so they can help you out. And then here's going to be the place where you put the next project set of drawings. Okay. So this template is the one you want to spend time. You want to actually generate a good set of guidelines that are helpful for you. You want to be sure these are working. And I'll tell you, I'm going to go back, what things are going to go into panel 1. You're going to need a little title for each of the drawings in the first project. So it's going to say section perspective, elevation, sorry, top view, elevation, blah, blah, blah. The rest of the projects in panel 1 won't have that little title. But within each of the cells, you're going to have a main title that will relate to the project. So something like this one could be Gruyere cheese, you know, or whatever it is. So you can think of the openings in the whole, but it could be a loft scheme, some title that is suggestive of the project. That has to go next to each of the cells representing the project. If you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, go to the student samples and you can get a better understanding. Okay, we have a template. We use the template for every project, but obviously we're not done fixing this little drawing, no? So now is the time to select with the circles. So we say visible, click, and I'm gonna go with color. Why not? Today's a beautiful day, so why not? Color maybe towards the dark, the visible lines. Oh, sorry, that wasn't this. This is clipping plane. Okay, so that's fine. I'm gonna use visible lines for that green. I'm gonna take a look at the weight. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's a little more, 1.5. If you wanna, by the way, you can use the numeric codes to add a value if you want it a little bit thicker. And you can always zoom in to see what's going on there. Okay, nice. Next, the hidden line I think is important to take care of. Click, select. I'm gonna make it light gray. I tend to, it could be green just because it started this light green. It is gonna be thinner. And I don't know what number it is, but whatever number you decide here, you should keep it for all of the projects, okay? If it has a lot of hidden lines, just be patient. It might take a little while to elaborate. Okay, we also mentioned that we have a new layer, which is the clipping plane. And what you could do is always just turn off the rest to see what it is. This is the section cut. So I'm gonna use the light paint bucket. And again, you could do this in different ways, but I'm gonna use color for the section cut, section plane. How do you do that? Light paint bucket allows you to change the way these things are shaped. And I'm gonna use also a green, why not? I'm gonna go with lively green. Once you change those, you need to select this. So first you press Control to go to the selection shortcut. You can also go here and then go to K, but then I'm gonna paint using this code. Okay, if I go back to the layers, I can turn on the one, okay, let's don't need them. And that would be the thing, no? Maybe the visible line's a bit too thick. I'm gonna go visible, go back to 1. Could be clear. If you think it still is, it's up to you. As long as you're consistent, you can go to 0.75. Okay, there's something there, why not? Okay, I have color here. I want color in the perspective now. Okay, either one you can do, but I'm gonna go back to Rhino. By the way, I can put the clipping plane on a new layer and I can call it something like clipping plane. Clip, I right click after selecting and say change object layer. I can turn it off so it doesn't bother me. Now, if you turn it off, then you can't actually say do not clip. So I can select the clipping plane and then clip here and say do not cut for a second there. So I can work on this and then turn off. There's a command that is basically purge. So if you have layers that don't have any geometry on them, if you purge, it will clear a bunch of stuff that is not used. And that was all the make2ds that I've been deleting on. Notice that if you change the perspective and you're trying to work, that's a little tricky. You might want to go back to the perspective, the original one, if you want to work on it a bit more carefully. Or you might want to go to the parallel view by going here to parallel. Okay, I know the perspective that I want is actually saved. Here's the perspective good. There you go. And I know I want the rendering, so that's when I go to right click on the blue sphere and I want to change the basics. Now these are slightly different because I have a different, I have Rhino 6, you have Rhino 7 most probably, so just bear with me, it's pretty much the same. I'm gonna go to the 1600 more or less. I'm going to take this to 150, which is DPI, is the pixels, density of pixels, and then normally you will get a good quality, something like that. So I think this will give you a nice, decent rendering of this. This is the backdrop. So if you have this selected, the background is going to be white. We don't want anything, so we say transparent background. And this will give you a ground feeling, so it will. You don't have to create a floor, it will just have a floor by itself. We don't want a floor either. So those are the things. You can set a sun, so sun is coming in. You can even go to sun settings and change those a little bit. You can go here to rendering view. And then if you go to sun settings, you can manually control, you can change a little bit these things theoretically. So it's a very small, but notice how this is changing as I move. Okay, so you can change the angle. This is manual, so it's not exactly based on any particular science. So it just went up. We're doing diagrams, but not necessarily. And you might want a dramatic effect or not. And maybe you want to change this after you select the material. This is what I'm going to do now. Okay, transparent background is important and ground plane checked off. I think in general, everything else, I mean, there are other things you can play with if you want a diagrammatic thing with a render curves, so on. I think in general is fine. Keep it simple. Now, in my case, I'm going to put it too small, so otherwise I will never finish rendering this, okay? Another thing in your computers you might have or not, but you need to set the current render to Rhino. If you have the V-Ray option, make sure that one's not clicked. Unless you have a V-Ray, you might want to try the V-Ray for Rhino, which we'll be talking about in the future. Anyway, I'm going to render either there or here. Here's where it says remaining. Mine was very fast because it's very low res. If you can, do something else while it's rendering, good about it. But before I actually say yes or no to this, maybe what I'm going to do is assign a material to my base project. So remember, it's the circle to the right of the square. And I'm just going to choose like a paint. And I'm going to be consistent with the coloring. So I know the color I selected in the diagrams and the lines are green. So I'm going to select like a green thing, maybe a happy green. Okay. You can always do your own. What is the custom and select some transparencies or whatever. But either one, you have several options. I recommend you use them. If you want to maybe use gems, we'll have some reflections and transparencies. By the way, notice how it's changing because I am under render view. Okay, if I go to shaded view, I'm seeing the purple. This we talked about last time. Okay, and remember, you don't want to move it, not even a little bit, because when I render this, it's not going to fit properly on the section. Okay, so if you move it by mistake, remember you have to go to set view name views, and then double click. Again, yours will take a little bit longer because it's a high resolution, but probably your computers are better than mine, so it should take a bit less time. And again, play with transparencies if you want, it's up to you, but you're gonna have to be, you should be consistent throughout the panorama one. Okay, you save as, remember that we said transparent background, that's why we have this in black color. That means that if I save it as a PNG, it's gonna have that transparent background. So I'm gonna say perspective render. Go back to Illustrator. Here we have to place the image. There is. Important to notice that we probably need a new layer and call it something like image, and then drag whatever that image is to that layer. And you might want to have it all the way to the bottom, so drag it down. Nice. Last is a little bit of a tricky one, but you know, you're gonna have to scale, always pressing shift until this is accommodated properly. That I have to say, it is a little bit painful. Small tweaks will get you there. You might want to zoom in all the way to that point and scale a little bit less to be more careful. Okay, yours will look much better because higher resolution as well. And notice that maybe the hidden lines are too strong, but maybe not. If they're too strong, you can always go back, select the hidden lines, make them maybe darker or thinner or whatever it is that you want. Maybe 1 and 1 is better. Or 1 and 2 could be good, I'm not sure. And then maybe even a little bit thinner, 0.25. And maybe a little bit just a notch darker. Okay. Okay, so there we go. We could have rendered anything else. We could have, you can render the top views, the elevations. You could do a section clipping plane of the elevation and have a section with color. That's another one. That would be nice. You could bring, since we have the rendering setting, I could do it very easily. Just go turn on the clipping view, select it, go to properties, say perspective, and go to my name views and go there. And I can also do a render of this very fast. You know, again, once you have it, why not? I save it. I'll call this 2. Go back here. It's a funny thing. Here's something Rhino didn't know how to solve. It's funny. With complex forms, you might end up having some of those. And again, place. Make sure that goes to the proper layer, which is image. And place it where it should be. Shift, shift. I'm using the arrows to move to the right and left. Nice. So now I see all the green is fantastic, but maybe the section cut is not so clear. So what I could do is select the section cut and change the color of the section cut by double clicking and make it a darker thing. No? So that could be even more aggressive. If I want to fix, look at the resolution. It's, again, it's a low resolution. That's why it looks like that, but yours should look much better. But here's a problem. I'll turn off the images for a second. That Rhino didn't know how to solve this, a little dummy. So one thing you could do is select, that's one single thing. You can probably split this thing. I don't even remember where this was, but you can split it for sure. You can add one here. No, there was a reason. There was a way. Scissors, sorry. Click this thing here. And then you can get this one separate from the other one. And you can do a selection. I'm selecting only the point, bring it here, selecting this other point, bring it there. I mean, I don't think you need to be at this level of, but I'm a picky guy. And then I can select this and say I is to match properties. So I have them there. And if I want to be, good at it, I would probably want to place it under the hidden layer. That's an extra. That now makes more sense. I guess maybe that's supposed to be all hidden. Maybe. I'll leave it there. Okay, back to images on. Again, the guidelines are there, but I don't need to see them. If you were like super pro, maybe all of them have a little bit of color that could be done easily, given that the settings are there. You could just go get rid of the clipping plane, go back to the top view, render. Say plan. And this is actually this view. Yes, I go close to it, render. Elevation view. And we have the isometric set view, northwest. Again, I'm just gonna get rid of this. Correct. Okay. ISO. Go back to Illustrator, place. Maybe I can place them all at the same time. ISO, plan, elevation. Let's see if that works. You need to put all of them under the layer image, correct? And then one by one where they belong. One of the classic things is, this is like a mistake in a way. The rendering is outside of the line. And many of you will probably do it in the beginning. Just be careful that it's not super obvious, because then, we probably need to change that. Okay, looks cool. One thing you can do also select images, and there's this command transparency. You can find it under Windows and set it for some of them to be, I don't know, 69 or whatever, so you remember 65. So some of them could be with transparency, so you get to see a bit better the hidden lines. 65. 65. So what I'm doing is basically these three are a little bit toned down, and this become like more important. Anywho, this is the thing. Why not? You might like this situation. I'm going to save this for the last time. It's template final. That shouldn't be template final. That should be actually, oops. Loft final. Okay, so once you're done with the super final, you go to the InDesign. These are just examples. You can delete the one that was here that you have and placed. Where did it go? Still saving? No, there is. Control D. Again, this is important. You don't drag and change the scale. You just click once and that's it. It brings the proper scale. So we just need to center it more or less with arrows. You don't want to scale these guys either. You want to keep it without being scaled, and you just want them to be as center as possible. And then all of the rest should be aligned with the top and bottom. Remember that these guys are looking bad, but they're actually okay. If you right click after selecting, you can say high quality, and they will be in perfect shape. You will need to place that in a layer, obviously, and probably the layer should be like image or whatever it is. Be careful with it, do not print, that could give you problems. If you want a text, which you want, it's actually a little title like cheese. I'm going to be picky about the font, so just make sure it's a nice font. Maybe that's the one. It's up to you. And the size, so we can read it on a 22 by 34. Panel. So maybe when we print on next Tuesday, it's too small, but that's okay because it's we're going to print it at half scale, no? So maybe 12 is okay, but because it's a title, you might want to go to 24 or whatever, or might want to go to over 18. Some people have done text vertically or whatever. I don't know. It's up to you. You might want to find an alignment. Maybe this is. Maybe I can push this up. For example, what if I actually come back here? Oops. Let me. Why shouldn't do that? I'm going to move this one further up, and I'm going to think that the title is actually on the bottom here. So you can consider, well, you should consider the title as part of the composition, no? Maybe these ones are separated, this space, this space. Let's see. Deselecting and then come down here. Okay, I'm going to save that. Because it's a link, it's easy to go back to Illustrator, sorry, to InDesign and link it in a way. So that comes up automatically. And maybe the word comes here. I can align it to the right. Here. And then I can just snap this to the side and to the bottom. Okay, so all of them will have it nearby. Maybe I have to take this a little bit down so that even the title should somehow make your template change a bit. Okay. I mean, I don't love it, but it's not bad. I think it looks okay. If I can do all of them just like that, I will be happy. I imagine all of them with a particular color and, you know, all of them have a section and a perspective. What could I do? I mean, I could always add a little person here on the perspective. That would be nice to see the scale. That will be going back to Illustrator and placing. So you go File, say Place, and you can select a little dude or duda that you can find on the web. I'm sure you know about this because you've been working with AutoCAD. So you can find a person in AutoCAD and open it directly here and place it here, scale. Remember, scale is pretty much up to here. So it could be a person walking outside to have a sense of scale. That would be nice. For example, or you can have a person here, I don't know, or here inside. You will change that and then you will just go back and update. And I think that's nice, fine. The first one has the idea of elevation, that, you know, the labels for each of the drawings, but the rest don't have it. So you do one, you use the same template for the second. After you have fun with the second in Rhino, blah, 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 third, fourth, five, six. You're gonna do more than six. So maybe you start discarding the older ones that are not so fresh and nice. And once you're done for next week, whether it's with one that's very nice, 2, 3, whatever it is, you those old stuff. You're gonna export this. You can say export, print PDF, go back here. And I call it as a PDF. Where is it? Maybe still thinking. Oh, export, sorry. It's coming. Here it is. Okay. Now, if you're in a computer lab, because you print in there, remember right click and open with, and you do with the Adobe Acrobat, because if you double click, it's going to open it with the web. One thing you might want to do before you print is that you just kind of scroll down to the bottom. It says 34 by 22. That's good. You know that you exported correctly. That's the size. You take a look at it. You can even zoom in to see if it's perfectly vector based, the lines. The render is not going to be, but in high resolution, you won't notice. And you have a nice thing. Don't worry about this stuff, nor this stuff. I'm going to do File. I'm going to print this thing from the PDF. Okay, settings. Well, you need to be in the place where that printer is located. So I don't have it here, of course. If it was, if I were there, maybe it's here. I don't know. Let's say AND. Yeah, maybe those are, but they're not connected obviously here. But you get a sense. These are the AND printers, I believe. for whatever reason. Anyway, if they have tabloid size, you might want to go to seat center, because I think in our classroom, I don't know if it works. You can try there too. First thing is, this size has to be not this size. That would be when you go to the plotter. You go to plotter, say the size here has to be exactly the same as the real scale of the paper. But here we're doing the trick. We're going to do 50% shrink. So we actually do it on tabloid. First thing is to go to and say it to be tabloid. Now each of the printers has a different interface. So you just need to understand that every interface is going to be talking about the same things, whether it's color and whether it's size. There's not much more to it. No, so you need to find where that is. Well, where is color? I have no idea. So you need to start looking at it. Well, that's probably print size, and it says letter. So we want it tabloid, which is the 1117 letter or whatever. Or maybe we call it tabloid in the design world. There you go. Source, media type, destination, page sizes, whatever. Duplex color, we say full color. If you want to do a printer, you can do it in grayscale for next Tuesday, no problem. Okay, you get those. I don't know where you approve these changes because it hasn't changed anything. Letter. Interesting. I don't know. Oh, here it is. Sorry, I'm just mixing. So you say, okay. What is going on? 1117. Okay, there you go. That's 1117. You wanted also landscape, so you can do landscape here. But notice how it's exactly double the size. You could say fit and it will fit it there, but the best way is to say custom scale 50. So you're precisely numeric. No? And that would just make it exactly the size of your paper. Okay, now again, I'm not saying this is the one, you just have to find the one it is and change the two things that you need. You want it in color or grayscale, and you want it to be 50% scale and landscape, and you want it to be in a tabloid or lager or whatever. It's 1117. It has to say that here, and then you print. It will bring it to you, and that's the thing you bring to class. Okay, good. If you want to be in color, it's perfect, but bring the thing. Okay. Another good test, you don't have to bring it, is actually to do the same printing on the same printer, but to say actual size and have a sense of, you know, how it will look when you print it in real scale. Okay. So it will be something like that big. So we can have a view of how it is, the composition in the entire space will be shrink, but also we can see how it will look, the size of the entire thing by printing at actual size. Okay, so two printers and grayscale, whatever, it's fine, so we can understand size and so on. Okay. Let me actually stop the recording.